Hello, my name's Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Thursday, July 4th. Today is day 272 since October 7th. My deepest apologies to anyone who attempted to go to the live briefing that was supposed to be this morning. I got the time wrong. And so I went to show up and I was a half an hour late. And so we have several people who are very faithful to attending those weekly live briefings. So my apologies that I did not attend. And so the briefing did not happen this morning. I did want to highlight one of the pieces of news that I shared yesterday because it is so critically important. Israel just approved the largest seizure of land in the occupied territories in the West Bank over the last 30 years. This is according to Peace Now, which is who tracks settlements. Authorities recently approved the appropriation of 12.7 square miles. That's nearly 5 square miles of land. This is in the Jordan Valley. The Associated Press reported this. The news agency said that Peace Now indicates this is the largest single appropriation approved since the 1993 Oslo Accords at the start of the peace process. On July 1st, the Israeli government, via the High Planning Council, announced the agenda also to propose more than 6,000 housing units in dozens of settlements across the West Bank. 2 days of discussions were held yesterday and today about this. In June, the Israeli government had decided that the responsibility for planning procedures would be transferred from the Minister of Defense to Smotrich, and that there would be no need for ministerial approval for the promotion of plans. And this is a significant shift because it allows for the accelerated development of settlements without considering political or security considerations, as the Israeli government had done previously when it came to construction in the West Bank. Peace Now said this: in the midst of this exhausting and destructive war, with thousands of Israelis displaced from their homes, 120 Israeli hostages still held in Gaza, my note is dead or alive, the ongoing settlement construction, along with the decision to establish new settlements deep within the West Bank to transfer the planning powers from the army to Smotrich's officials. Smotrich, just for the record, is the same one who I talked about yesterday, who has been transferring power from the government to civilians who are settlers. So this transfer to Smotrich's officials will lead to disaster for Israel and the region. These actions not only hinder the resolution of conflict, but also diminish hope for a better future. This is a government without any public support, and it must be ousted in order to save us from total destruction and perpetual war. That's Israel's nonprofit Peace Now, who I'm quoting. Reuters reported that Norway condemned the decision to legalize 5 settlement outposts in the OPT today. The foreign minister said it's totally unacceptable that Israel had also decided to advance these 6,016 housing units for settlements in the West Bank. And my question is, why is Norway the only country speaking out? So the US and others are calling for a 2-state solution, and all the while land is being de facto annexed, settlements are being built, land is being confiscated and stolen from Palestinians. All of this is happening at the same time that we're watching, deaths in Gaza and incursions in the West Bank and all of the other issues we've been talking about. In the last 24 hours, Netanyahu approved the departure of a negotiating team for hostage release talks. Netanyahu also spoke with Biden today on hostage negotiations, and he vowed that Israel would not end the war until all of their goals are met. That was according to his office. That was reported just in the last hour of my putting together these notes. Significant unrest has continued in the West Bank. Settlers entered a Palestinian village of Fandukamia, which is north of the West Bank city of Nablus, and they threw stones, burned a car, according to 2 defense officials today. According to officials, soldiers fired in the air. This is the 3rd incidence of settler violence on Palestinians in the West Bank today, since Thursday morning. So 3 separate incidents of settler violence that happened today. Update on hostage and ceasefire negotiations. Hamas provided a response in the last 48 hours to the proposal for the release of hostages and a ceasefire deal. It was given to Israel yesterday on Wednesday. It has ignited a fierce debate within the Israeli government between Netanyahu and the heads of the defense establishment. Israeli news reported today that The defense minister Gallant has discerned a new opportunity for a breakthrough with the talks, but Netanyahu, as reflected in leaks that hit the media, has said in official statements that he does not share their view. As you heard in the reports of his conversation with President Biden, he's saying the war is not going to end until all of our goals have been accomplished. And so what's being said now, in the choice between the release of hostages, albeit at a high price, and his political survival, it is clear what he intends to choose. Netanyahu fears the collapse of his alliance with the far-right parties and possible subsequent early election if he compromises and takes this deal. So high-ranking figures in the defense establishment believe the result is liable to be a missed opportunity whose price will be the lives of more hostages, the continuation of the fighting in the Gaza Strip, and perhaps additional escalation with Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that's where things stand in terms of negotiations. The Nazareth Magistrates Court extended the detention period of the family of Jawad Rabia. He was the person who perpetrated the stabbing attack at the shopping mall in the northern Israeli city of Carmiel. You'll recall these are his family members. Nazareth is in Israel proper. An Israeli sergeant was fatally stabbed in the attack. More than 200 rockets and drones were launched and several barrages at northern Israel from Lebanon, and fires broke out in several locations as hostilities on the southern border of Lebanon and northern Israel continue. Sonic booms were heard in Beirut as the Israeli Air Force broke the sound barrier over Lebanon, according to Lebanese media sources. Israel's airstrike used helicopters and fighter jets to strike 2 UNRWA schools, the UN refugee schools used as Hamas headquarters, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. And today, IDA, which is a consortium of international NGOs in Jerusalem, CMEP is a part of that, put out a statement calling on the international community to urgently move beyond condemnation and limited measures to ensure the effective protection of Palestinian communities, to reverse Israel's annexation of Area C in the occupied West Bank, and to hold accountable the state, organizations, and individual perpetrators of settler violence and illegal settlement expansion. I won't read the whole statement, but I just wanted to give you this. Over the last 9 months, settler attacks have reached a daily average of 4 attacks per day. This is compared to 2 attacks per day in the same period last year. At least 10 people, including 2 children, have been killed during these attacks. 234 have been injured, including 20 children. Since October 7th, 1,260 people, including 600 children, have been forcibly displaced amid settler violence and movement restrictions. The displaced households are from 20 herding and Bedouin communities throughout Area C of the West Bank. And one of the survivors of settler violence has said, "There is no place safe here." I had 2 follow-ups from last week's Thursday briefing, and I would have shared these today had I gotten my time correct. So again, my apologies. This is a follow-up. I was asked about the anti-Semitism bill that was proposed in US Congress. Jewish Insider, a journal, published this on June 28th, saying that Chuck Schumer was facing pressure from Jewish leaders and Democratic colleagues who voiced frustration with the fact that there was a delay in the bill moving forward. Schumer's been outspoken against the rise of anti-Semitism in the wake of October 7th's attacks. This legislation is called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It was passed in the Senate first in 2016 under unanimous consent, but after initial effort to unanimously fast-track the bill failed last month in the Senate, Schumer has delayed for weeks bringing the bill up to the floor to a floor vote, even as it was expected to pass comfortably with bipartisan support and won backing from a large number of Jewish groups. There was an interview in Jewish Insider where Schumer, who rarely addresses the matter publicly, stressed he's looking at every single option to try and get strong bipartisan legislation passed, but there was not a timeline shared for when the bill might move forward. Last week also, there was, I think I had stated that the International Criminal Court had already issued arrest warrants for Gallant and Netanyahu and Israeli government. They had not issued those warrants. And last week it was decided in a pre-trial tribunal to postpone the decision-making process about whether or not to allow the International Criminal Court and their chief prosecutor to issue arrest warrants against Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Defense Minister Gallant for alleged war crimes. The postponement followed a June 10th application where England filed as a friend of the court brief against the ICC's jurisdiction. So my blessings to all of you. Today is July 4th. Maybe you're with your family, maybe you're alone. I don't know how you have spent the day or the evening, but it's Independence Day here in the United States. And a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, "True patriotism springs from the belief in the dignity of the individual, freedom and equality, not only for Americans, but for all people on earth." And might that be true, as so many people around the world live without freedom, without dignity, without the common respect of humanization and the many ways that we as Americans have so many great privileges. Might those freedoms exist for other people in Gaza, in the occupied territories, and in parts of the world where they do not yet exist. I remember the words of Nelson Mandela, who said, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestinians." And one of the things that I believe is that none of us are truly free until we all are free. May it be so, in the name of Christ. Amen.